All right. So we will be covering the request for repairs in this video. So request for repairs, the RR form, is what we send when self-explanatory, when the buyer is asking the seller to repair some items.
Yes.
After they've completed the home inspection, have done a termite inspection or any
pool
sort of inspection.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. So let's jump in. All right. So request for repairs. I'm noticing, obviously I already know this, but we're noticing that we have to label each one.
Yes.
For once, because we can request
more than one time.
That's right. Okay. Again, date prepared. That's the day we actually generated the request for repairs, and the dated refers to the date we wrote the offer.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes,
all right.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. So number one, obviously, is where you would list. 1A is where you would list all of the repairs requested. Now, people think like, hey, we only have this many lines to input something, so we're going to mark see attached list, and then you attach an addendum. That's actually the wrong way to do it. So you just keep typing in that section. It will automatically generate a text overflow addendum that will attach itself to the request for repairs. So just keep typing, no matter how small the space is, it will generate its own addendum.
Okay. Well, I've been doing it wrong then. I always do the addendum, but I think this is new, isn't it? Where they updated this in the last couple years. I still do it the old school way. Yeah. All right. And then section 1, section 2, that is for termite. Mm-hmm. Okay. And we have a section for a credit. So if our clients don't want to ask for specific items and we want to ask for a credit, this is where we put it. This is where you can do it.
A lot of times they ask, I've gotten the question like, hey, we want to just ask for a credit, but we want to list the items that we're asking for a credit for. So you would still put in section 1A, all the items there. I always tell people, hey, put in there, buyer request credit in lieu of following items. And then you list those items. And then you would also mark 1C and put that credit in there. Mm-hmm. Also notice on the very top of the form, number 1, it says note, seller has no obligation to respond to buyer's request. And the reason that is there is because technically every single contract, whether you write it in or not, is sold as is. It's specified in the contract. Mm-hmm. In the contract, there's also a space that talks about the request for repairs that says the buyer can ask for it. Again, the seller has no obligation to respond. And now the request for repairs expires after 3 days.
Mm-hmm. And that's new.
Which is towards the bottom of this form, and we'll go over that too, but that is new.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, any reports that you're going to attach based on the request for repairs, home inspection, pool inspection, termite inspection, HVAC inspection, you want to mark that box in number 2, and you want to list those reports and send that with the request for repairs.
Yeah, and we advise you attach the home inspection report or any report that you are requesting repairs for, so that the sellers can see specifically what you're asking for.
Yes, and what is, and maybe there's 15 items called out by the home inspector and they're only asking for 5. Mm-hmm. It's good to send it so they can see everything that was marked, I guess, wrong with the property. Mm-hmm. And they can see, hey, they're only asking for, 5, which are probably their most important.
Yeah. Now, FHA or VA, these are for the specific lender required repairs,
yes,
right?
Before there was a whole separate form for that, and now they've incorporated it into one form. So number 3A would be if lender requires anything called out on an appraisal, or the underwriter has called something out after reviewing the appraisal, this is where you would also put that request.
Yeah, I just had one where the appraiser called out a broken window. Mm-hmm. So, but I don't think we use this form, or they didn't use that form. They just emailed us. You can email, just everybody knows, listing agents know for the most part. You can just email and ask them to repair. Like we already prepare our sellers for appraiser required repairs or lender required repairs. But the formal thing to do is to put it in the request for repair forms for the FHA or VA loans.
Requirements. Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. Let's go to 4 through 6.
So 4, I don't think I've ever filled out this section. Seller agrees to all buyer's requests, and some of buyer's requests And buyer accepts seller's partial response. So this is where you would mark that. I guess if there is a contingency removal you're sending with this RR, you mark that and saying that, hey, we're only removing the contingencies if this stuff is agreed to. And that's where you would put it there. Number 5 is where we said about it expiring now. It expires at 5 p.m. on the 3rd day. So if, let's say you're waiting, hey, we're not going to respond till the appraisal comes in because it might come in low. You can either say, hey, once we get the appraisal back, you need to resubmit the request for repairs, or you can still answer to it. But technically, after the 3rd day, it's kind of a dead form.
And that is also fairly new because before we had to formally respond to the buyer's request. Now, if we ignore it, that's it. Like, it doesn't matter. Okay. And seller response.
That's for the, that's for everything. So seller response, if they're going to just agree to everything, then they mark number 1. If they're going to, let's say, do items 1, 3, and 5 and not the rest, then you would do it there at number 2 and you can type it in there. If they want to respond completely separately on the RR, which is the response to the request for repairs, it would be number 3. And then that would generate a whole separate form. Number 4 is if they're not incorporated into this agreement and you want to do an AEA, which is an addendum to the existing agreement. It's kind of like an addendum, but it's separate because you type it up. The seller has to mark whether they agree or don't agree on that form. And then if they don't agree to anything at all, then they just mark number 5, they sign and send back.
Got it. Okay. And then the buyer's response to seller partial agreement or the buyer's response, this is where the buyer agrees or accepts or rejects the seller's response.
Yes.
Correct? All right. All right. This is it for requests for repairs.